Hi everyone. So it's been a pretty interesting couple of weeks since we all last spoke. A couple of my subscribers have been staying with me in Chelsea. Their names are Justin and Michael. I'll link you to their YouTube pages down below. And yeah, pretty much started with Justin emailing me on, was it Facebook or YouTube? Facebook, I believe. And he basically told me that he'd just left his home state of Minnesota. And he was just wondering if he could come and stay with me in Chelsea. He was just floating about. When he messaged me, he was actually staying with Richie, which you all may know as the Salvia Shaman. He was staying with him, and he was just, like I said, just drifting about, you know, just doing his own thing, finding places to crash at, and, you know, just roaming around California, really. So, you know, me being the accommodating kind of guy I am, I said, yep, sure, come down. And yeah, that was a couple of weeks back, and he's been with us since then. And yeah, we're having a really good time. And some pretty weird stuff's been happening since he arrived. All of these things on their own don't seem that weird, but you put them all together and you start thinking, yeah, the universe is definitely, you know, giving us a nod of sorts and saying, yes, you know, this is the way things were supposed to be. So anyway, the first night we pull up at the transit centre, I see Justin, we make eye contact, and then literally just as we're pulling in to the curb, we start seeing these flashing lights in the rearview mirror. And it's the police, we're being pulled over. Well, we was pulling over anyway, but yeah, the police were pulling us over as well. This has never happened to Chelsea. Chelsea was driving. She's never ever been pulled over by the police, and the timing just seemed so bizarre. Anyway, supposedly Chelsea cut in front of the police car. You know, it was nothing really, and the police officer was fine about it, very forgiving, and just let us go on our merry way after he stopped us. Oh, actually, it was she. She stopped us and just said, don't do it again, basically, and be more careful, be more alert, and all that kind of stuff, which was fair enough, and we took that on board, and Justin got in, and anyway, we went on our merry way, like I said. So straight away I'm thinking that was a little weird, the timing, to be pulled over by the police and the flashing lights in the rearview mirror. That will tie in a little while. But regardless of any of that, it just seemed like an interesting synchronicity that as soon as we meet up with Justin, bam, this big thing happens. Lights, police, being pulled over. Then something else happened literally a few hours later that seemed to tie in and seem to correlate. So a few hours go by, and you know, we make Justin at home, we feed him. Me and Chelsea go into our bedroom and go to sleep for the night. Oh, well, we're winding down anyway. We're watching some YouTube videos on the MacBook and just chilling, and suddenly as I'm chilling, I look out onto my balcony because I can see these flashing lights again. And I'm thinking, what the hell? And it's almost like these flashing, spinning lights are coming onto the balcony. And I'm thinking, admittedly, I did think, holy fuck, it's the mothership. Like, here we go, beam me up, Scotty. Like, so I went out, opened the balcony door, and stepped out onto the balcony expecting, like I said, something, something otherworldly to be there. But it wasn't, unfortunately. But what it was this bloody crashed car. Like, this car had just spun out of control, come off the road, slid down into our, I don't know what you'd call it really, but it's just kind of like an embankment, maybe you'd call it. But anyway, like, we're on the second floor of these apartments, and this car had basically come off of the road, down the embankment. Its bonnet was pointing directly towards our balcony. Think of all the places that this car could have crashed, and it crashed right outside my balcony, pointing towards it. And it was the lights again. I'm thinking, the universe is saying hello to us here. You know, something is going on. I mean, for two big events like that to happen in the space of a few hours and to coincide with us just meeting up with someone new, someone who I do feel is important to my journey, and Chelsea's as well. And something I just want to quickly add is that about an hour or so later, 3 or 4 police cars turned up just to oversee what was going on. And again, it was with the flashing lights. Now, I haven't even seen a police car once since I moved to Arcata, and now I suddenly see about 4 or 5 in the space of one night. And there's this reoccurring theme with flashing, spinning lights. It just seemed more than a coincidence to me. So straight away, it was an interesting start. And you know, don't get me wrong, I'm not getting tied up in these things that have happened. I'm not giving them too much thought, but I just acknowledge and nod and say, yeah, well, it's pretty unlikely that that was just a coincidence, and thank you for the sign, I suppose, you know. But anyway, just to confirm, the person that did crash was alright. He got out of the car in a bit of a dazed state and was like, oh, what happened? And you know, I told him, you crashed, mate. You know, I consoled him and that, and he rang his mum, and everything was cool. So since Justin arrived, the synchronicities really have been rolling in thick and fast. So let's list off a few more. The other day, I was lying on my bed with Chelsea, watching YouTube videos. Yes, this is a reoccurring theme, something we do quite often. Yeah, I was laying down on the bed and I was watching an old UK video game show called Games Master. Some of you might remember this. Classic show. One that makes me feel very nostalgic when I watch it, and I think that's why I was watching it. Anyway, that's besides the point. As I was sitting there watching Games Master, a voice came to the forefront of my thoughts, and it said, some sort of twisted ecstasy. And this voice was very clear. It was right at the forefront of my thoughts, and it repeated itself, you know, 3 or 4 times. Some sort of twisted ecstasy. Some sort of twisted ecstasy. Then, I think it was on about the 4th or the 5th time it repeated itself in my mind. It tied in perfectly with what the host on this show that I was watching said. And I wrote this down because it was such a perfect synchronicity. What the Games Master host said doesn't make much sense to me, but regardless, the point remains. He said, our 3 reviewers have thrown out, desperate for some offshore ecstasy. And just as he said ecstasy, it tied in perfectly with the voice in my head that said, some sort of twisted ecstasy. And the word ecstasy was said in my mind and said by the host on this show at exactly the same moment. Another interesting synchronicity is one that's happened a couple of times now, and it's when I'm laying in bed, I'm falling to sleep, I'm starting to slip into hypnagogic imagery, and I'm having those momentous realizations. Now, I'm sure a lot of you will be able to relate with this. As you're drifting off, quite often I find really, really interesting thoughts start coming to you, really abstract thoughts, out of nowhere, pop, 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 just popping in your mind, and you're thinking, oh, wow, yeah, I didn't realise that, and bing, oh, what about that? That ties in with that perfectly. And I was having one of those moments, and just as I had this insane epiphany, it's one that I can't even remember now. It was, and again, I'm sure a lot of you can relate with this, when you have an epiphany so big that you actually can't remember it. So anyway, I had this big epiphany, and just as I had it, keep in mind I'm not fully asleep yet, so I can still hear outside noises. Just as I have this epiphany, I hear Chelsea go, you know, like that kind of noise you make as if to say, oh, wow, you know, And she made that noise at the exact same time as I had this epiphany. And this has happened a couple of times now. So what I believe is we was sharing thoughts, possibly, and that we did genuinely have the same epiphany at the same time. Just a shame I can't remember what that epiphany was now. Anyway, I've rattled on for far too long already, and I've got so much more to say, but as you all know, YouTube has a 10-minute limit, so I'm going to have to round it up for now. But I will be making a video again very shortly to round up what's going on right now. So yeah, I'll speak to you all again soon. Bye.